Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to ethnography. I hope you've had a good week. I hope you've had time to catch up on your reading of your large ethnography that you've chosen from our selection for the course. And I hope you're enjoying it. That's really an important part of investing in a large ethnography, that you are understanding that the delivery of the research is being told in a way that's a story. And each one of the selections that you might have chose present things slightly differently. And as you probably have also learned, when you get into the readings for this week, is that there are even more different ways of formatting and delivering an ethnography. In fact, that's really one of the unique features of this sort of naturalistic research. There are probably as many formats of ethnography as there are ethnographies. And it's because that ethnography is a type of research method that captures information, data, much more organically and presents findings in a way that are appropriate to the types of audiences that would be interested in that story that you're reading. So I didn't expect you to finish your large ethnography that you're reading, but I hope you got into it enough to start to understand a little bit about how data is being presented, how it's being analyzed. That might not be so transparent, but that's, again, part of the uniqueness of this sort of method. In this week, in the textbook, I've actually assigned each one of you one of the chapters, so you don't have to read all of them, that are sort of mini ethnographies. Now, if you think about, picking up a research article, in many instances, no matter if it's quantitative, qualitative, or even mixed studies, it sort of has this mixed methods. It sort of has this structure that most research papers are going to follow. That is not always the case when it comes to an ethnographic report. So these are small or mini ethnographies, I call them, that the authors have put into the textbook that we're using. And it's a really good way in relatively short amount of time to understand how a report using ethnographic methods does not need to be an entire book. It can be smaller. So depending on where you are in your career, you might be preparing maybe to do doctoral research. You may be in a position where you're already publishing now because of your work environment. And of course, even journals, no matter if they're nursing in health, nursing, health science, medicine, public health, et cetera, are not going to always give the luxury of, a 60-page ethnography, because that's just not typically how long articles in the health sciences generally are. And you need to sort of figure out, if I'm going to use an ethnographic method, how do I use it and still be true to the method while at the same time meeting the requirements of doing shorter reports? The study might be quite large, but when you publish, it's a shorter report. I think this is an important thing to recognize, because even in clinical environments, there may be the need to communicate in writing a situation that's really grounded in a deep meaning with patients, families, caregivers, providers, payers, et cetera. And you may, even in clinical work, want to communicate something that's going on using an ethnographic method to provide a short but deep description. So the required readings this week are really to show how an ethnography can be compact. It doesn't have to be an entire book. Um, and in the health sciences, it is very more likely that if you're going to publish, you might be utilizing this sort of venue that, papers that may be in total 10 to 15 printed pages, and not 60 to 70 printed pages. That's very unlikely to end up in a journal. It might end up in a chapter of a book, but outside of that, I wanted you to understand that ethnographies do not need to be as large. They can be smaller. And in each one of these cases, the different mini ethnographies that I had you read this week, it's clear that information can be disseminated and the story can be told in a lot of different ways. Like I said, the motto with ethnography is there's as many formats as there are ethnographies in the world. In fact, in other fields that use the ethnographic method much more readily, like in anthropology and in social sciences, even art and music. Even in those cases, the formatting is totally unique, and one ethnography is a unique type of document. So that's why I'm having you look at these short ones. Then as this week's assignment, what I'd like to see is after reading your mini assignment, your mini ethnography, I want you to prepare like a 10-minute voice thread that doesn't have to be a huge amount of slides, that describes how the big ethnography, describes the ethnography that you were assigned, in the above list. How's the design laid out? How does it incorporate, if at all, the literature associated on the phenomenon? Now, keep in mind, it may not always be embedded within. It could be in, something like an epilogue or something like that. What you think the methodological techniques in the study were. So how did they gather their data, if you can extrapolate that? Or how do they utilize different types of data to tell this story? How do they present the data? It doesn't matter what sort of paper you're writing, could be totally quantitative. You need to figure out a way how you're going to present the data that doesn't provide your entire database or your entire code book. There has to be a way to represent the data so that the reader can see how data and analysis has contributed to what the finding is. And in ethnography, the finding is the story that is being told. How are those findings illustrated? Are they visual? Are they prose? Or like, for instance, are they the story themselves? And that's going to be different in each one, of course. And lastly, how did this mini ethnography differ from your large ethnography that you've been reading this week? And that's a tricky thing to do. I would typically never compare one large or mini ethnography against another because of the uniqueness of them. But for the purpose of learning the difference between mini statements of storytelling and larger states of storytelling, ask yourself the question, how different are these? So just to give you a comparison, if you're reading the Lisa book, how does that compare to the mini ethnography on weight loss between beauty, food, and violence? Okay, there's probably a huge amount of differences. But what I'm asking you to do is look at those two different types of ethnography and ask yourself, what are there may be similarities, by the way. Are there differences? What are the differences? And even comment on why the differences might be the ones that you are finding. Okay. And I ask each one of you to comment on one other student's presentation and provide insights into how they had similar and or different experiences. For ease, I ask you to do your web voice thread and then just put the link into the discussion board that I've created for this week, number 5, okay? And one important thing, because I think sometimes we forget, make sure that you've provided access so all of us that are reviewing each other's work can provide feedback within the voice thread. That's this week's sort of uh, uh, this week's goals. On another note, I just came off of the PhD in Translational Health Sciences residency weekend. Very unfortunate. I was hoping that the weekend for the nursing program would coincide, and we could have sort of a short, person-to-person, face-to-face experience. It didn't work out that way this year. So I know not all of you are from the nursing program, but I know most of you are. I'm going to throw out into the Ask the Prof discussion board. If you would like to have maybe an hour for us to all get together through Zoom while you're in Ashburn. If you're not in Ashburn, you can log in. I do not know your schedule, but I can be pretty flexible in the days, especially Saturday and Sunday. I'll post that in the Ask the Prop discussion board, and if you can give me some ideas or insights if this is what you want to do, it might be a good time. We're about a third of the way through the semester. I'd love to hear how this is working for you, have an opportunity to have discussion and ask questions, find out what you're gaining from the course so far, and just generally have a good conversation with the group. So let's keep that in mind. I will post that again in the Ask the Prof discussion board, and I'll look forward to someone or multiple people making some suggestions if that's what we want to do next weekend. Okay. As always, if you have questions about the week's work and assignments, just put it in Ask the Prof or email me. I'd be happy to talk with you or email exchange with you on anything that's going on. Okay, if you have any questions about this week, please let me know. And I certainly hope we can arrange something for next weekend. If not, that's okay. But it's always good to have an opportunity to actually just talk to each other rather than always doing everything online. And if we're going to do that, I could create a little mini agenda about what we could talk about. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great week, and I hope to be talking to you later this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.